Sergeant Gregory Eric Rejo, Gregory-Ericrayho. From Collinsville, Illinois, Collinsville.
All right, now start off by telling us when you joined the military and why you joined.
I joined in October 2002. In my family, if you're of military age and there's a war, you join. So I joined. In January, I shipped out to basic training, Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry. Completed infantry school in May. Made it to Fort Lewis, Washington in July. After a couple months of training, I shipped out on my first deployment late October 2003. Returned November 2004.
All right, and what did your parents think about you joining?
My mom hated that I chose this MOS, but they were pretty proud.
And how long have you been married?
2 years.
2 years? All right, now I'm going to have you walk me through a brief summary of all 3 Purple Heart incidents.
Okay. The first one was a vehicle commander with the command group, and we were out on patrol. We were going by a place in Missoula they call the Wall of Death. We were driving down. I guess there was an IED hung up in a tree. It blew. The armor soaked up most of it, but there was a small gap so I could see. And the force wave came right through that gap, hit me in the side of the face, sheared teeth on this side of my face, cracked every filling in my mouth. I mean, knocked me out. I had a pretty good concussion. Got blown up. Felt like I got hit with a shovel. They wanted to keep me in for a week, but I didn't want to become gun shy. So 3 days later, I was back up in the same spot doing the same thing. I was still medicated, but I didn't want to get scared to get back in there. So 3 days later, I was back on the horse.
And what month was the first one in?
That was in October, 06.
And when did you get here?
We got here July 1st, 06.
Okay. And the second incident?
Second incident happened in May. Yeah, May 07. We were just outside Sauter City. We were once again patrolling. I was with Charlie Company. The vehicle behind us was hit with the double EFP. They started shooting down at that truck. Me and my battle buddy, Sergeant Enrique, began to engage the guy who was shooting from the roof. Unbeknownst to us, there was an RPG team right above us. They shot 2 RPGs down, one at the back of the truck, one at the front of the truck. Then some guys came running up. We shot at them. We went down to reload, and that's when they noticed a lot of blood on Sergeant Enrique's face. And there were still more guys out there, so we hopped back up and started to engage them. And it took us a while to realize that I was the one that injured. All my blood had splattered onto Sergeant Enrique's face. It had hit me in the wrist. It's about the size of a cigarette butt. It's still in there. And it had hit my ulnar nerve, so I wasn't feeling any pain at all. My whole arm was completely numb, and then the adrenaline. By that time, I had bled out all over myself, so they noticed. I didn't even notice. And we finished that firefight up. And we went back, started recovering the vehicles, and at that point, I got medevaced back to Taji. So.
How long were you out of the fight then?
I was out for about 10 days. I had no feeling. Eventually, I popped it out of the cluster that it was in, and I got my feeling back. So.
And what hit you? You said it was shrapnel?
It could be shrapnel, could be a round. They say it's about the size of a cigarette butt from the X-rays, about half the size, but round like that. So it's most likely a bullet. There was a lot of tracers coming in and out of the striker. The enemy was right above us. We weren't really in a position to engage them because we had other targets at the rear. that we were engaging. So it was just kind of, couldn't really, get up there with full battle rattle.
What does that feel like? Like walk me through, like what does it feel like not knowing that it's hit?
Well, when the truck got hit with the double EFPs on each side, time stops because all your buddies are back there and you don't know how bad it is. Then across the radio, it gets a little chaotic for a minute. And everybody's trying to report what they see, and it was a pretty complicated attack. So at that point, we just started shooting at known targets. There were a lot of suspected targets on there, but we didn't engage them because we didn't know if other trucks were dismounting soldiers. So we were engaging the ones that we could positively identify. Later afterwards, we realized that there were other targets that we should have engaged, but we didn't have PID. It was nighttime. The nods are great, but still, they're not the best. So we handled it pretty good. I don't know if they were trying to kill us or tried to bag us, but after the explosions, they actually assaulted us, which was something I'd never seen up to that point. They didn't last too long, though. We weren't as bad off from the explosions as the enemy probably thought we were, to give them the courage to assault us. So we repelled their attack pretty easy. And they didn't try that ever again.
What was the third incident?
Third incident, we were in East Rashid. Me and my saw gunner were pulling concertina wire off the back of the truck when a deburied IED blew up. I think it was like 40 or 50 pounds homemade explosives. It's about 4 feet away from my position, the explosion. Blew the tire off right next to my saw gunner. I don't know how, but he suffered a concussion, but not a scratch on him. I broke 2 ribs, knocked me pretty good. Our vehicle commander, Cook, lost his leg. It was a pretty big explosion. We got out of there, not got out of there, but got away from the kill zone, assessed ourselves. There wasn't much you can do in that situation. The enemy wasn't attacking; they had already attacked. There's nothing you could do but just recover the injuries, and that one took me out. That put me behind the desk for the last 2 months. So broken ribs. What can you do?
How's your wife coping with all of this?
She doesn't really understand. I mean, she understands I got hurt, but I'd call her right after the incidences. After the first one, I didn't tell her how bad it was, and then I told my father how bad it was, and so she felt pretty bad that I didn't want to get her all worried. But my father's a soldier, so I felt easier telling him stuff. So after every other incident after that, she didn't believe me that was the full extent of my injuries and that I was okay and that I could go back to work. But she doesn't really understand the military too well. So, I mean, she obviously feels for me, but she doesn't really understand what goes on and what we do and stuff.
Is she like fearing phone calls now every time it gets worse? Or?
No, I keep in contact. I mean, I don't really talk to anybody else but my wife. So I call my mom occasionally, but I focus in on just my family, talking to them. So, you know.
How do you break that news to her?
Well, it's hard because at first you're ordered to do it. You know, you're just sitting in the hospital, you're rocked, you're dazed, you're still high off the adrenaline. And then they're like, you call home. And you're like, Roger. You know, you just follow orders. You call them and say, hey, I've been involved in this incident and I'm okay. Because the Army's going to call. And you want to beat the Army to calling because the Army, the guys who call from the Army don't know what's going on. They get some little 2-line report and they read it to your family. And so you want to beat the Army to it. You know, you want to talk to your family before they get it from the Army. Because the Army's it's just going to sound a lot worse. So, that's the main thing. You get to them first before the Army calls, and it's usually a lot better. After my second one, though, my CEO had to confirm my injuries to my wife because she didn't believe. I told her I'd pretty much just suffered a concussion after the first one when I'd lost teeth and stuff like that. And then she'd heard from my father, and it just was a big mess. So my CEO has to call my wife to confirm, to make sure that I'm giving her all the information, because I don't, you don't want your family to worry. So.
Which was the worst of the three, pain-wise?
The first one, definitely pain-wise. Having your teeth sheared off hurts really bad. All those nerves are just exposed. Then again, the adrenaline numbed that down. And I got to the dentist pretty quickly, I'd say after 2 or 3 hours, but those 2 or 3 hours before the dentist got to me were pretty painful. They had to do CAT scans and stuff like that, make sure there's no internal bleeding. So.
Just give you a bunch of fake teeth?
Yeah, temporary. When I get back to Lewis, I'm sure the real pain will start kicking in. All temporary things, and that was over almost a year. They've held out pretty good, so. My whole mouth feels different. I had to relearn my mouth, you take that for granted. And all of a sudden, one day everything's normal, and the next day the entire interior of your mouth feels different.
Do you ever come to a point where you feel like you're the luckiest person on earth?
Yeah. I definitely got like Caesar's luck, Caesar's fortune. It's an old saying. I definitely have that. And I've had some other close calls that didn't result in Purple Hearts too, so very, very lucky.
Well, what keeps you going out there every day?
My soldiers. Something happened to them, I don't know what I'd do. Our medics are the greatest medics in the world, so I know no matter what happens, unless it's instantaneous death, I'm going to be taken care of. So that's the greatest army you could have. And the Army gives us great equipment, but our combat medics are the greatest armor you can have, because those guys, and our guys specifically, I don't know about combat medics around, but our guys will fight through hell to get to you, to get you healed up. So knowing that you have those guys out there and they're just standing by waiting to come rescue you, it makes it not a problem at all to get into a fight.
After you've been hit like the first time or the second time, you say you get back out on the battlefield as quick as you can, so you don't get gun shy. How do you do that? How do you talk yourself into that?
Well, I had a little thing when I was in airborne school, getting ready to jump out of planes. That was pretty scary. And I always told myself, just conquer your fear, conquer your fear. I rode a little lower at first. You ride a little bit lower. Probably not as best. You're probably not as good as you were when you got hit afterwards at first, but you're out there, you get more comfortable. So it's just repetitive, doing the right thing, to get the proper training. You know what the right thing to do is. So if you just do that, you'll be good.
What do you tell your soldiers? Do you find soldiers that are afraid after they get out, and what do you tell them?
Not really in the infantry. You're not going to find a lot of fear in the infantry. It's there, but a lot of people won't show it. And those incidences where you do show it, no one talks about it.
So now, after 15 months of being here, when you look back over the 15 months, what's the one thing that stands out in your mind?
The one thing that stands out in my mind, just how fast we move. I'm still just amazed. We'll watch other units. You see 3 Humvees, you got 1 squad of dismounts who can get into a fight. You see 3 strikers, you got a whole platoon. we covered speeds that are just phenomenal, just in an hour, where we can get to, how far away we can get in an hour, places that we can get into. It's just amazing, just to be in this city one day and then the very next day be in another city, just fighting, without having to take a couple days to get ready. You don't have to pack anything up. You can just throw it on the striker and go. You don't need anybody. And take our fuel, our food, our ammo with us, and just, I mean, we could fight one day, fight en route, and be fighting the very next day 300 miles away. It just amazes me. It just stands out. We just move so fast. I'm just amazed.
Do you have any advice for the people coming in?
Hands. Always look at the guy's hands. If there's a threat to your life, it's most likely going to come from their hands. So, you know, if someone's got a gun or something that could harm you, it's going to come from their hands. So scan hands would be my advice. Obviously, you know, an IED, you're most likely not going to see the trigger man. So, you know, stay low, do what your SOPs say, you know. So if there's armor there, stay behind it, do what you can do. But for crawling around the cities and stuff, scan people's hands.
When you get home, I mean, it's a rarity for somebody to have 3 Purple Hearts, especially in one battle. People are going to look at you in amazement and think, you know, hey, this guy's got 3 Purple Hearts. How is that going to affect you? And what are you going to think of yourself in hindsight, looking back?
In hindsight, I'll be like, I'm lucky. That's what I'll think. Very lucky. It's just metal on the chest. I wish I could. I wish I could not have them. I wish I could have my teeth back. I wish I could have, you know, not this pain this constant pain I get in my wrist. I wish that all of our guys who died were alive. So, but as of, you know, we call them the enemy marksmanship badge. It's nothing to be proud of to get hit. So there's not really a lot of pride in having 3 Purple Hearts. But just feel lucky though. Feel lucky. So.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, after this 15-month tour, I could say came over as a team leader and didn't come over here to make friends, came over here to get in some fights, and I've gotten what I wanted. So, and you know, the people of Iraq are very talented people, and I wish them the best. So, I'm happy that I can help them, I guess. I mean, I hope I've helped one. I believe there's one Iraqi out there who's grateful for our help. So, and then, you know, kill the enemy is, you know, that's my job. So, got to do that. So I'm pretty happy. To be honest, I can't wait to get back again. You live anywhere for a year, you get attached to it, and I've lived here for over 2 years, so I'm somewhat attached to it. I mean, I want to be in the States, but.
What are you looking forward to most about
About
going home?
going home? Resetting. This is very tiring. I only need a month. Reset myself, get some rest, I'd take a break, and then you know, train the next batch of guys we're losing a lot of guys going home to be civilians. So you're gonna get a bunch of new guys in, train them up, get them ready to come over here again. It's just about it. As you leave, you automatically start preparing for the future, and that's, as an NCO, that's what I have to do. So hopefully get a couple months to rest, and then start training the next batch of young guys who come over here and then get their own baptism by fire.
You looking forward to coming back?
Yeah, I really am. I hope I get to go up north again. of anything that I found in this place, if we're fighting this war for anything, it's always for the oppressed. That, you know, we always look back in our previous wars and be like, we've helped the oppressed. Well, the Kurds up north were oppressed under Saddam. And when I was up there in 03 and 04, just after we had taken Saddam out, they lived bad. It was third world. And then here I come back 18 months later, and they have completely changed up there. I mean, those people are great people. They are hard workers, they're dedicated. So I always think of the Kurds. You know, I'm doing this for the Kurds because they really, really want it. They really, really want what we gave them. So, and they're really doing something with it. The other two factions, the Shiites and the Sunnis, they're a little slow at what they have. But I hope to come back and see them doing the same thing that the Kurds did up north, just making a better life for themselves. And so, because I'd hate to leave and then it just get worse. So, and it has. It's been a lot better than it was last time. I mean, the enemy's getting better. I mean, the enemy's getting a lot better. But the people's lives are getting better too. So that's about it. Baghdad's a beautiful city.
What?
Oh, going into a lot of houses before we came. Baghdad was a very beautiful city. You know, dress right, dress. Saddam had it. You know, take good care of your city, or it's off with your head type of thing. And for as many people they have, and having been all over the city, I mean, besides of course all the concrete we put in everywhere, it could be a very beautiful city. So.
Huh? It was awesome.
Yeah, you did really well.